Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for coming in today.
No problem.
We hear there's some exciting stuff that's been going on in your life recently. And
Yes, there
I know
has.
that you recently graduated LeTourneau this past May, correct?
Yes.
And since then, you passed your NCLEX exam.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that and maybe what's been going on since then.
So I took my NCLEX in June, so I spent the first half of the summer studying for that. I thought it was good. Obviously, it's a nerve-wracking experience. I didn't apply until October because of Jacob's job, so I just recently got a job in Colorado Springs at St. Francis Medical Center. I'm going to be an ICU nurse, so we're really excited for that. Thank you. Yeah.
When you're looking back over the past few years, I'm sure there's all sorts of milestones and different key relationships that have happened. And
For sure.
And you met Jacob at LeTourneau, right? Or you met him before LeTourneau?
Yes, I met him before LeTourneau.
Okay.
2014.
Well, I know that through your time at LeTourneau, you obviously studied nursing, but you could have studied nursing a lot of different places.
Yeah.
What was it that first put LeTourneau on your radar?
It was Jacob, actually.
Okay.
He had been going here a semester. I wasn't in college at the time, and he asked me to go here, and I was like, are you crazy? First of all, I'm not a Christian, and second of all, it's going to be way too expensive because, you know, it's a private school. But I applied anyways and got scholarships and grants. But even before I came to school here, I was still $6,000 short. And his mom, my mother-in-law, she was like, the only thing we can do is pray. We prayed, and I worked at a custard shop at the time, Andy's Frozen Custard. It's in Tyler. And the owner, Galen, actually wrote me a personal check for $6,000 after Jill kind of told him my story and told him what I wanted to do. And he asked me the same question, you know, you could go to UT Tyler, you could go to TJC and still major in nursing. And I mean, I didn't really have a good reason for wanting to come here, but he did it. And then after that, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be, you know?
Wow, that's amazing. So tell me a little bit about your life leading up to LeTourneau as it relates to your faith. What are some key things that prompted questions?
Well, I was mainly raised by my grandma, who I call my Mimi. She passed away from breast cancer when I was 12. My mom was going to this church, and she kind of threw herself into that, so that was shoved down me and my sister's throat a lot. And I didn't really understand death when my Mimi passed away, so I had a lot of questions about that. I had a lot of questions about the God that they served at their church. I was working 2 jobs and going in between friends' houses. I didn't live with my mom at the time. Dropped out of high school, got my GED, which was the reason I wasn't in college, because I was thinking I didn't finish high school, I can't go to college. And then when I was 17, that's when I met Jacob and then came here.
So you said you were living at friends' houses, or where were you living during that year?
I lived in my car, but I went in between friends' houses to shower and stuff like that. So,
Wow.
But I didn't want to be too suspicious and like stay there all the time. So.
Okay. And so you said then you met Jacob's family at kind of the end of that year or the middle of that?
Yes, I met them. Yeah, probably around December-ish, because we dated for a few months before he introduced me.
Okay. So how did you meet them?
Well, after I met Jacob, and I mean, I just met his parents. We had a breakfast. They made breakfast for me, and I went over to their house and had breakfast. And they didn't know that I was living in my car. I can't even remember when Jacob found out. I mean, I had all my clothes and most of my stuff in my car, and he would always ask questions, and I would just say that I'm a messy person. But, and he believed me for a while, and then when I told him, you know, don't tell your parents, obviously. I just met them. And he told them anyways. And yeah, and then Jill invited me over one day, and she said that she was adopting a kid. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's great. Like, have you talked to Jenna? You know, because he has a little sister. She was 7 or 8 at the time. And I was like, she might be mad, you know, like, have you talked to James? Like, are you sure? And she made me help her make the bed and make the room up and everything. And she was like, yeah, she's a girl, and her name is Jane. And I was like, what? What? Me? Like, are you serious? And she was like, yeah. And so that's when I moved in with them.
Wow. So as a part of your asking questions about not just, you know, your faith, but the questions that, as you mentioned, that came as a part of the life experiences you've had, what sort of questions were prompted when you first started living with Jacob and his family?
I didn't understand them at all. didn't yell. They didn't really fight. They would have discussions, but it wasn't like a full-out arguing. There wasn't name calling. There wasn't, you could just, at the time I didn't know that it was love, but there's a lot of love in that household. Very unconditional love, and I had never experienced that before. And I had begun to understand a little bit with Jacob because he's the same way. But it was different for me. I had never felt so like guilt-free and free in general. I mean, I didn't understand.
Were any of those questions about that type of love or any other part of the faith that his family had, were those brought up or validated or confused anymore when you started at LeTourneau?
No. Well, the questions were brought up, yes, in classes, because, here at LeTourneau we have to take the Bible classes. So I took Biblit and another one that I don't remember the name of. But we talked a lot about Jesus and who he was and God and his characteristics and things like that. And I realized that it was kind of matching up with how the Worthams are. And I think that helped me a lot to gain more of an understanding into who Christ was because I had experienced it a little bit before I came here. So that was a really cool experience for me. And I know that I had to have met them before I came to LeTourneau because if I had have come straight from my home here, I still would have been very confused and wouldn't have understood. And so I think the way that it worked out was all a part of God's plan, obviously.
Yeah. So during the classes you were taking at LeTourneau and your time as a student here, what are some other relationships that you formed that maybe impacted any part of that journey?
Oh, I made great friends here, lifetime friends really, and I met different friends than I had when I was in high school. The friendships that I gained here were also unconditional. I had never heard so much encouragement in my life, and people who would put their hands on me and pray for me. I hadn't really experienced that before. Sorry.
It's okay.
And from the professors too, they invited me into their homes. I got to meet their families. And one time I was crying in class, kind of like how I'm crying right now. And I had a professor stop the class and take me outside and pray for me. And you just, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, if I would have gone anywhere else, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. And I had, staff members, like people who aren't professors but that work for the school, talk to me and mentor me and all of that. It was all important into me becoming who I am, so I'm really grateful.
How do you feel like that then prepares you for now moving into this exciting new career, this new stage of life, moving up to Colorado?
A lot. This school is not only difficult and hard, which sounds bad, but it's good because when you graduate, you know that you're prepared and you know that you're going to be one of the best, but also having people that support you. Like I have no doubt that I could contact any one of my professors that I had here or any one of my friends that I have here, and I would immediately have someone to talk to, someone to cry on, someone to pray for me. But also it's faith-based, and I feel like to be a good nurse, it really helps to be a Christian. I want to say you should be a Christian to be a nurse, but that's my own opinion. Because one of the main things as a nurse is being compassionate about people. And sometimes that's hard because people can be very mean and not encouraging and not understand. And so it takes a lot of patience and a lot of compassion to go through the day and help people who are hurting and not get frustrated with that. If you're not compassionate about it, I feel like that's really hard. And compassion is something that comes from God, and you can tire easily without him helping you and guiding you.
So if you could have the opportunity to speak to someone perhaps who is currently 17 in a difficult place in life, what sort of encouragement or advice would you give to that student?
The one thing I would be sure to do is to love them how I was loved, because like I said earlier, that was the main thing. And I feel like that's what a lot of people need, is they just need to know that they're loved and supported and that they can do anything.
How would you describe the process of building a relationship with Christ? Is that something that you feel like is one and done, or is a process that you're able to talk a little bit about that?
It was, I mean, for me, it was a long process. As I explained, I had some childhood and adolescent things that I had to deal with. And I was really angry for a long time for those things happening, but now I know that they happened for God's glory. You know, that stuff happened to me. It made me the person that I am today. And now I'm sitting here telling you this story and how I grew from it, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. So it's not something I'm ever going to stop doing. It's a relationship. It's not a test at the end. You know, you are growing a relationship with Christ, and that's something that you continue to do. I mean, if you're in a relationship with someone, it continues on. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So,
what excites you the most about this next stage of life, this next step that you guys are moving into?
Well, besides moving to Colorado, we're very excited about that. But just that I get to do what I want to do. You know, this is something that not many people get to go to work and do ministry, and that's something that I can do. I'm working for a nonprofit faith-based hospital, so I don't have to be super quiet about my faith. Of course, I always have to respect, you know, the patient's cultures and values and what they want, but I can always encourage that. I can pray for them, and that's so exciting for me, and I get to help them when they're down and vulnerable and be there for them, and that's where my heart's at, so I'm very excited. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible to hear the way that God has been working through your story, and obviously your story's not even close to being finished yet. You know, you've been building into your story, and God has most definitely been building into your story over the years. We're glad to be able to take this time and talk to you today. So thank you for giving us this time, and we wish you all the best in the months and years to come.
Thank you.